This is Kevin Black. This is my first time doing Restream on LinkedIn Live. Very, very excited. Um, this is my first time doing this. I'm going to give you an update on what's happening in the world of black market leadership, and to give you, I even have a lesson that I've learned this week that I'd like to share with you. Um, so again, it's my first time doing this. You got to bear with me. Uh, First of all, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all the followers. I'm very excited. I'm really hoping that 2022 is not going to be 2022, TOO. I don't think it's going to be. Already, it's been a great year. Very excited. A lot of, especially in this world, a lot of cool things happening. Got a lot of new guests on the Black Market Leadership podcast. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Andy Raskin. We're going to talk about strategic narrative, which to me is just a really, really cool, interesting concept. You know, I've been studying strategy for years, and frankly, I've never heard of a strategic narrative. I mean, I've heard of a narrative that could be strategic, but I think he does something very, very different. And I've been following him for months now, and he's just had such really, really good observations. And it looks like he's doing some really cool things in his work. So I'm very excited to talk to him about the strategic narrative, and hopefully we could bring value to the audience. Uh, my last guest was Colonel Douglas McGregor, and I'm very happy to say that that was the most popular podcast I've ever done. Had 4 times as many people tune in and listen to it, and I've had some really, really great feedback. So for all of you who liked listening to Colonel McGregor, the good news is he's coming back. We're going to do a part 2, and if you remember, Colonel Douglas McGregor was, besides commander during the biggest last tank battle of the 20th century, besides writing a book that was required reading for colonels and generals about how to redesign the U.S. Army. So many things. And plus, he's always on Tucker Carlson. He was on Tucker Carlson last night, did a great job. He was also personally assigned by President Trump to help end the Afghan war, to personally lead that withdrawal. But unfortunately, it was way too late. It was just, I think, 2 to 3 months prior to Trump leaving. So it's a shame, because I think McGregor would have been was the perfect man for a perfect job, just came in way, way too late. But the good thing is, we're going to talk to him about his experience in the executive office, working for POTUS, President of the United States, and some of his experiences in the Pentagon, which I'm sure will be some fascinating stories. So with that, that's with the podcast. And again, I'm talking to Mr. Rask in a couple hours. I'm very excited. I've also, for news out there, I have been able to create an alliance with David Johnson of the David Johnson Show. If you haven't seen, I was a guest of his some weeks ago, but he's already posted 2 clips of that discussion, and we talked about I think it was the connection between philosophy, military history, and strategy, which is really cool. He got some really good feedback. We talked about that. I talked about, I think, behaviors. God, there's a whole. It was an hour long, but good news is David is he's such an entrepreneur, and he loves new ideas, that I told him about what I do with tailored coaching, and that is bringing people in and literally watching Netflix as a means of leadership development. Instead of sitting home and reading a leadership book or a management book, leave that to me. I've done a lot of that. We can watch series or movies and dissect them, and in that way, people actually get a real experience, real in-depth experience, almost like an emotional attachment to the characters, to the story. So David Johnson loves this idea, and we have decided to team together, and we're going to take a famous movie and dissect it for the audience. We're going to talk about the characters, the plot, all things you do in a movie, but we're really going to bring it back to leadership, to management, to strategy, to behaviors. It's a lot of fun, and I think if anything, the best show that I have ever done, the most valuable, it's on Netflix. It's called American Crime Story: The People versus O.J. Simpson, which is the best show there is. The best show there is, in my experience, on leadership and strategy together. Strategy and behaviors and team dynamics. If you watch a show for those 3 things, there's so many lessons. So we're going to do the same thing. And I have to tell you, though, we had a show already planned, and boy, talk about timing. The show we originally had planned it's on Amazon. It's an Amazon feature called American Playboy, the Hugh Hefner story. It is a fantastic show. I love it. I think it's one of the best shows I've ever seen on entrepreneurship. It's almost like a docu-series in that people could, you have a character who plays Hugh Hefner. You see what he does. You're seeing all the people who interact with him, and really see how Playboy rose from the 50s to 2000s. So we were going to do that. We were going to dissect it because it's such a great show. But it just so happens that A&E, I think next week, starting Monday, is doing a series on Playboy, and it's the nasty, bad stuff of Playboy. And I told David, no, we're staying away from this. This is too toxic, and it's a real shame because there's so many great stories in it. So we're nixing that. Unfortunately, we're going to nix it. I'm probably not going to be able to do it. But I will tell you, though, we're looking at some shows, and if you have some recommendations on shows to watch, I'd love to hear it, because right now there is a documentary on Hulu that I watched a couple of months ago about WeWork. Oh my Lord, it is fantastic. It's so good. It's such a great documentary in that you really see the mentality of founders, of what they believe in. WeWork is a story of people who drink their own Kool-Aid, so much so that they even change their accounting practices to match their language, matching that language, which technically ignores reality. So we're looking at that. Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not sure. You guys got to tell me what I think you'd be interested in, because I would love to know. I think it'd be fantastic. And it'd be a lot of fun. And frankly, I think you'll get a lot out of it, just seeing how we can dissect the characters. I do a little behavioral profiling, something that you never do in real life. You never profile someone without a tool, never, because people masquerade. But when you watch these shows, we have license, because you're seeing what's in their homes, what's in their offices, what's in their heads. So you're getting that God's eye view. So that's what we're talking about. And we're going to tape, I think, the first week of March, which is going to be very exciting. Be a lot of fun. And when this happens, we're going to make sure to share it, because I think this is a new way of getting people interested in real valuable leadership development, not just foo-foo stuff, but really learning about processes, systems, how behaviors, personalities affect strategy, how they affect organization structure. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so that's with the David Johnson Show. Another thing that's happening is that I have partnered, another partnership, strategic partnership, with the premier expert of Mission Command. That's Mr. Donald Vandergriff, the author of Adopting Mission Command. Now, for people out there, if you're interested in leadership development, then this is a series you do not want to miss. Why? Mission Command is a philosophy that comes from the military. Technically, it comes from the Germans, from the late 1900s, or excuse me, 1800s, the 19th century. It is a philosophy of independence, of initiative, flexibility, all the things that corporate America is always clamoring for, that they want out of their own leadership development programs. This is what Mission Command is. And the U.S. Army, and I know the Marine Corps, but at least the Army has been trying for decades to bring it, to use it. I can tell you personally, completely unsuccessfully, very unsuccessfully. But it's a system that people strive for. And why? Because you need that kind of flexibility. The fact is, plans never really go according to plan. And you need people on the ground to improvise, to help you with that situational decision making. So when you do that, if you can have that kind of process, or that kind of philosophy that empowers people to act on the go, to do things sua sponte, spontaneously, then you have increased the conditions for rapid decision making, to help your organization be flexible, to go left, to go right, to pivot. But again, it takes a certain type of organization, a certain type of culture, to even have this type of Mission Command. Well, what I've done is I've partnered with Mr. Donald Vandergriff, again, premier expert of Mission Command, and we've partnered together, and we are now going to bring you a holistic education on Mission Command. And what does that mean? That means we're interviewing and having discussions with other experts in the field. The idea is to give you a holistic view. So that means we touch on the military, that's general, touch on the Army, Special Forces, Marine Corps, maybe even the Navy. We touch on the police, maybe get some find some people doing firefighters. I will talk to you about the behavioral element, which I've discovered. And we have other people to talk about mission, command, and business. So the idea is really to give you a holistic view of different perspectives of how this philosophy, first of all, why it's important, how it's practical, how it's achievable, and how it's applicable to all these different other perspectives. Be a lot of fun. Very interesting. I think we have right now nearly 4 hours of content already made. It has to be edited. And the cool thing is we talked to some really, really interesting gentlemen. One is Chet Richards, which is author of Certain to Win, a fantastic book. Oh, my Lord. When Donald told me we're going to be talking to Chet Richards, I'm like, oh, I feel like a kid at a candy shop. Oh, my God. Such a great book. Such a great, really cool author. Great writing, too. Certain to Win. You got to check it out. So the goal with the Mission Command series, though, is not only to give you the holistic view, but really is to inspire you to go out and pique your interest. If you like this stuff, here are the authors. You can probably contact them, but really, really give you that knowledge and the understanding that this philosophy of leadership exists. Again, the Army has been trying to do it for years. There's reasons why they can't, and we're going to talk about that. But I think it'll be really valuable to you. So finally, with all these updates, I mentioned to you I had a lesson. What's the lesson of the week? So lesson of the week, it goes to decision making. Last night, if you probably can't tell my voice, I've been coming over COVID. So I've been very tired. And yesterday I laid, I got 11 hours of sleep, took some Zyrtec, and next thing you know, I'm still tired. So I lay on the couch with one of the dogs, and we watch a movie. I watched The Courier with Benedict Cumberbatch. It's about the true story about how the British send a businessman to become a courier for a Soviet military professional from the GRU. And basically, this is the guy, this is 1960, who gives intelligence to the Americans and the British about the Cuban Missile Crisis. To my understanding, he's the most important spy that we turned our most important asset in CIA history. That's what the movie says. Anyway, watching the movie, and I kept thinking to myself, again, I'm not spoiling anything, but that you could probably guess because we're talking about Soviets. There's probably a gulag or some prisons involved. And I'm watching this, and I thought about my trip a long time ago. I went to Hungary. So Hungary used to be under the Iron Curtain. And I went to this place called the House on Drassa Street, which was a house known for torture. The Nazis had it. That's where they were bringing in enemies of the state to torture them. When the Nazis were kicked out, when the Soviets took over the home and did the same thing. And I went to Hungary in Budapest to see this. And I went to the house. Very, very sad place. Oh, it's just heart-wrenching. You go in there and you go into the basement. And remember, this is probably a 12-story, maybe 10-story. I mean, I might be exaggerating, but it's pretty high. Not pretty high, but it's more than one story. You go in the basement, though, and that's where they had the cages, the jail cells. And you see where people are kept. Just horrible. And it looks very much like the Courier. But when you when you leave the cages, the little prisons, and you go, there's another room adjacent to it. And in this room are photos, hundreds of photos of the Soviet captors, of the people who were running the prison, the people who were torturing, these nasty, bad cops, bad military, just evil people. I thought to myself, watching the Courier, I'm like, what if we went back in time and said, you know what? Your empire, Soviet empire, is going to fall in 31 years. This is, remember, 1960, it's going to fall in 91. 31 years, it's going to be over with. But what do you think happens when that happens, when the empire falls? People still living. They don't disappear. They don't just, evaporate and go to another dimension. They're still there. And I thought to myself, as I thought to myself in Hungary, when you saw these photos, all these torturers, all these real, low down people, when the Soviet Union falls, they're still in their house. They're still your neighbor. I mean, think about that. One day you have your neighbor work for the secret police. Next day the empire falls. They're still there. That's Josh over there. He's a real scumbag. He was the guy who was torturing people, normal. And who knows what he's trying to do today. And I thought about that. And the reason why it comes back to legacy was, when you make decisions, I'm to the point now in my age where I think to myself, what am I going to say about this decision 5 or 10 years from now? Because it's going to happen. I mean, think about it now. You've done things now 10, 20 years ago that you're probably thinking to yourself, did I really know this back then? And I really think if you can have that kind of that ability to put yourself outside your particular time, 10 years from now, what will you say about you doing X or Y or not doing X or Y? And I thought that, to me, that's a really interesting element to incorporate in your calculus of how you do decision making. I think, did you take the risk when you could have, when you should have? Did you not? Why not? And what happens 5 or 10 years from now when you reflect on that? I think, to me, at least in my purview, I think it's important. I think it puts a lot of things in perspective. And if you're looking at potential risk, 5 years from now, what would you say if you did it or you didn't do it? I know, something to consider, something to chew on. So that's the kind of thought of the day. Placing yourself outside yourself years from now and really considering if I have done X, Y, or Z, or if I did not. What would you say to yourself? To me, that's interesting. Chew on it. With that, this has been 15 minutes, been almost 17 minutes. Not too bad. Let you know, I will be doing some other, as we go on in the weeks. Hopefully I can do this weekly. I'm going to start posting elements about my new book, the book I'm writing, originally called Strength Through Chaos. I think I have another title now. This is the funny thing about when you write. God, the more you write, it's an exciting period. It's extraordinarily, for me, stressful, very stressful. I dream about the book. I think about the book all the time. If I'm not writing, I'm taking notes down. I should add this, should add this. But the title changes sometimes. And I've had Strength Through Chaos for the past couple months. But it hit me. What I'm really talking about is the chaos factor. The chaos factor, a leader's guide to mastering the uncontrollable. And that really is what I'm writing about. So one thing I want to do is I want to start talking to you about some of the chapters, some of the ideas which I'm hitting, because I tell you, the more I dive into it, I'm like, wow, this really is something here. Chaos is a really interesting concept. For one reason, it's very, very personal. It's very subjective. But how do you measure? If it is subjective, how do you measure? Is it really an issue? Well, I think it is. And there are different reasons why, and we're going to cover those. So, but that's not for today. With that, everyone, thanks for listening. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And I will talk to you next week. And this was a lot of fun. If you have any, again, suggestions for the tailored coaching, movies, or even series, I'd love to hear them. Series that really reflect on something like strategy, leadership, management, systems, anything that really is applicable that you think you could take out. No cheesy leadership movies. What was the one with Kurt Russell and the hockey team? The one they defeat the team. Fun movie, little value, educational value. Miracle, that's it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. Have a great weekend. This is Kevin Black from Black Market Leadership. Wishing you the best. Talk to you next week. Bye.